my channel. Today's video is going to be a story time, and as you've probably guessed from the title, the story time is going to be about the most romantic thing a guy has ever done for me. And also at the end of this, I'm going to share with you 4 life lessons that I learned from this experience. Back when I was about 14 years old, I went to stay in Egypt for a little while, and I was going to school there, and I met this guy, and I'm not going to give away his real name, let's just call him Toffee for all intents and purposes. So I met this guy called Toffee, and we became friends. We had like this really good bond, this really good chemistry, and I think like we had this romance just budding between us. Unfortunately, before anything could progress in that department, I ended up coming back to Scotland for reasons which are not relevant to this story, so I'm not going to go into them. All you need to know is I had to come back to Scotland. So the night before I came back to Scotland, I met with Toffee, and I gave him my landline number in Scotland, and I gave him my home address. I also had his mobile number, and I promised him that I would keep in contact with him and that I wouldn't forget him. So I moved back to Scotland. I arrive off of the plane and I use a mobile phone to text him his mobile number to tell him, hey, I've landed safely in Scotland. And I get this message that says, message couldn't be sent or something like that. And I'm like, no, I know this is the right number because this is his mobile number that I used to text all the time when I was in Egypt. And I know that I wrote it down correctly because I meticulously checked it over and over and over again. I thought, okay, maybe I know that like the signal isn't always reliable over Egypt. The phone lines aren't always reliable. Maybe the phone lines are down, the signal's down. So I waited a few days and I tried messaging again. And again, I got the same message, like message can't be sent or number not recognized or like words to that effect. I continued texting and texting and still getting the same thing. So I phoned and I got an Arabic woman who spoke in Arabic first, and then she repeated what she said in Arabic in English. And she basically said like this number doesn't exist or it's not in service or whatever. And I was like, okay. So as the days progressed, I continued trying this number. I was persistent. I wasn't just gonna like give up. So I kept trying this number, but I kept reaching the same conclusion. Then one day I went to get the phone number, which I had written down on a piece of paper. I went to get the phone number and I don't know where that piece of paper had gone, but it just had disappeared. And I don't know how it disappeared because I would take really good care of that. It was obviously a very important number to me, but I can't explain it. For some reason, that paper with that number disappeared and I didn't have it memorized off by heart. So I prayed to God and I said, please let Toffee know that I haven't forgotten about him. I do still care about him. Just make it happen in such a way that we can be reunited and get back in touch with each other. I prayed that every day. And it haunted me every day that I couldn't contact Toffee. I didn't want him thinking that I had just moved back to Scotland and forgot all about him, because that really wasn't the case. So as far as I could go, like all my leads had come to a dead end. All I had to contact him was this number and it wasn't working. Fast forward a little bit and then Bebo comes on the go. Now I'm not sure what age group you are that's watching this video, but if you're not familiar, Bebo is basically like the Facebook of today, but it was the Facebook before Facebook came on the go. Bebo was the place to be. So I go on to Bebo and I type in the search bar Toffee's name, like all the people in Egypt that have Toffee's name. And this big list comes up because Toffee, obviously not really his name, but his real name, was a very common name in Egypt. So there's quite a lot of people. And I start frantically messaging all of them and I'm like, hey, are you my Toffee? It's Kat. Hey, are you my Toffee? It's Kat. Hey, are you my Toffee? It's Kat. One by one, one by one. And they all come back to me and they're like, sorry, we're not your Toffee. We hope you find him. I was like, I don't know what else to do. Like, there was like a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope, and then dead end. And then Facebook came about and I was like, maybe I'll have more success with Facebook. So I did the same thing again. I messaged all the Toffies in Egypt and said, are you my Toffee? It's Kat. Are you my Toffee? It's Kat. And again, they came back to me and they were like, sorry, we're not your Toffee. We hope you find him. So I was like, God, I really, really want to contact him. I want to be in contact with him. I don't want him to think that I have forgotten about him. And by this time, like a few years had passed. And I was like, this guy is going to be in Egypt thinking like, I don't give two hoots. All I could do was pray, but it was something that every day haunted me. There's nothing more that I can do at this point. Everything that's within my power to do, I have done. Now all I can do is leave it in God's hands. So I get on with my life. Never forget about him and always think about it every day, but just move on with my life. And I start seeing guys, and I have a few boyfriends. I'd had like 2 boyfriends in secondary school. I'd had an 8-year relationship, and now fast forward, I'm about 27 years old, and I'm 2 years into a relationship with my partner at that time. So we were in the city, we were heading in to visit his family, and out of the blue I get this text, and it says, "Hey, it's your friend from Egypt." And I'm like, oh my gosh, could it be? Now there were a few friends in Egypt that I'd left behind and lost contact with, I had been trying to contact, and out of all of them, I was hoping and just had this feeling inside me that this was Toffee. So I replied back, which friend? And Toffee comes back and says, it's me, Toffee. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have been trying to contact you for years. And I explained to him like that I had never forgotten about him and what had happened with the phone number, and that I've been trying for years through Bebo, through Facebook, and like all this sort of thing. And he says, can we meet up? So we meet up, and he says to me, I tried using your landline to phone you, but it said that the number wasn't recognized and that it was a wrong number. And I was like, well, I don't understand how that can be, because I know that I gave you the right landline number. I asked him what number he'd been using, and he had basically, what happened was the 2 7s in the number, he'd taken them for 2 2s. So obviously he's typing in 2 2s instead of 2 7s. It's not the right number. I can't remember why he didn't use my home address to write me a letter, but for whatever reason, he hadn't been able to. I think he'd lost the paper and then he found it again like years later. I don't know. He said the only way that he could think to find me was every day after school, he would walk past my father's house and stand under my father's balcony, just hoping that I would one day return to Egypt. And that one of these days, when I returned to Egypt, he would be there standing under the balcony, there to greet me. Every day he did this for years. This guy, for all he knew, I could have gone back to Scotland and completely forgot about him. Like, as much as he knew, that's basically probably what had happened. But he cared about me so much that despite the fact he hadn't heard from me and that he couldn't contact me, every day after school he walked past my father's house and stood under the balcony in hopes I would one day return. But I never returned. And I explained to him, I have not been back to Egypt once since I left. And then he says, well, I got offered a job in Aberdeen and I took the job, but I knew that Aberdeen was in Scotland, and I knew that you were from Scotland. And by this point he had my address. I don't know how, he maybe found it. I don't remember exactly how. I just remember that even though I gave him my address, it wasn't an option for him to use that to contact me. And he saw that my address was in Scotland and that the job he was taking was in Scotland, and he wondered how far my address was from Aberdeen. So he looked up on the maps and found out that it was only about an hour's distance away by bus. So he took the job, flew all the way from Egypt to Aberdeen, and then took a bus from Aberdeen to the village that I live in. So he goes to the address that he has for me, and he knocks on the door and he says, hi, I'm Kat's friend, is she there? And this woman answers and says, I'm really sorry, but Kat and her family moved away quite some time ago. And he said to me, can you imagine how I felt in that moment? For years I have been trying to be reunited with you. I finally find a way to be reunited with you. I fly out like all the way, you know, to the other end of the world, basically, like all the way from Egypt to Scotland to find you, get to your address, like take a bus to your village, get to your address, and I'm told you're moved away. He's like, my heart just sank. But fortunately the woman said that she knew where you guys had moved to, so she gave him the new address, and he went to that new address and said, hi, I'm Toffee, I'm Kat's friend, can I speak with her? And my family member who lived there said Kat doesn't live here anymore, she's moved away, but I have her mobile number for you. So this family member gave him my mobile number, and that's when he contacted me. And I was like, this is insane. Bear in mind, I was 14 when I left Egypt, and I'm now 26. From the age of 14 to 26, This guy has not given up on me. He remembers me. He walked past my father's house every day and stood under my father's balcony in hopes that we would be reunited. And when he had the opportunity, he flew halfway across the world just to find me. Like, that's the most romantic thing a guy has ever done for me. And from that situation, I learned 4 life lessons, and I'm going to share them with you. 1, remain persistent. 2, prayers are answered. 3, if it's meant to be, it will be. And 4, don't settle. Persistence is key. In my situation, from my side of things, I was persistent. I tried texting him, and when I got the message saying that the message didn't go through, I tried phoning him. And even though I got a message saying that number didn't work, I persisted with these options until I lost his number. When I lost his number, I was still persistent. I went on Bebo and tried that. And when that didn't work, I was still persistent. I tried Facebook. From his side of things, he walked past my father's house every day, and stood under the balcony just hoping I'd return. And when that didn't work, he remained persistent by traveling halfway across the world just to track me down and locate me. And eventually it worked out and we were reunited. Persistence is key. From that, I also learned that your prayers are answered. When I had exhausted all other avenues of what I could do that was within my power to make this happen, I turned to God and prayed to him, and I prayed every day. And even though I didn't see an answer straight away, he eventually came through for me. My prayers were answered and we were reunited. Number 3, if it's meant to be, it will be. It seemed like everything was conspiring against us to be apart. Just as we start this budding romance, I have to go back to Scotland, and then I lose his number and he can't contact me by landline. And we have no way of contacting each other for years. But because it was meant to be, he comes across my address. He flies halfway across the world. He tracks me down. Like, even when he got to my address, he's told, oh, she's moved. It's like we were trying to be kept apart, but that didn't stop us getting together. Because if it's meant to be, if we're meant to meet each other and reunite, we will. So that's how that person said, I actually know where they moved to. Then he gets to that address, oh no, she's not here. It's like things are keeping us apart. But no, because the person that was there gave him my contact details and he contacted me. And so from the age of 14 to 26, I don't know how many years that is, you do the math, that many years later, we are reunited because it was meant to be that we would be reunited. So if something is meant to be, even if it doesn't turn up straight away, even if it doesn't seem like it's working, have faith, trust the process. What's for you will not pass you by. If it's meant to be, it will be. Number 4, don't settle. If a guy can walk past my father's house every day and stand under his balcony in the hopes that we will be reunited for years, if he can fly halfway across the world just to track me down, then that guy I'm texting can text me back within a reasonable amount of time. And if he's not giving me his proper attention and he's not respecting me by texting me back in an adequate, reasonable amount of time, or he's leaving it days in between texting, I'm not interested. I don't want that. If you can't even make the effort to send me a text back to a message I've sent you, when there's literally a guy who will fly halfway across the world to be with me, to be reunited with me, who will every day walk past my father's house and stand under his balcony in the hopes that we are reunited. If there are guys out there that can love me with that level of energy, then I will not settle for this half-assed energy some guy is gonna give me over here, and neither should you. Because you are gonna meet in life the guy that would fly halfway across the world for you and stand under your father's balcony. So don't be settling for some half-assed energy. And these are the 4 life lessons that I learned from this situation, and I just wanted to share that with you. Until next time, guys, stay safe.